Hey guys, Solid here and welcome back to another video, and I hope you're all doing well. You've got questions, I've got answers, we all know how this works, so let's roll the intro and just get straight into it. So before we dive into the questions and comments, I just wanted to clear up a mistake I made in a previous video where I was talking about the likelihood of the DRZ400E being discontinued here in Australia. For whatever reason, maybe it's the 3 brain cells that I've got at my disposal, I mixed up the weights between the E and the S, so I was thinking that the DRZ400E wouldn't get classed as an enduro bike as it's too heavy, when in fact it's 138 kilograms listed by Suzuki. So I think it will survive because it will be able to be classed as an enduro bike and therefore not need ABS added. So I wanted to clear that up. So the first question is from Donald Daly, and he's saying, why are you stuck on the Honda? They literally rank the lowest on all bike shootouts. They only rank the best in one category, and that's the lowest price bike. You get what you pay for. So to clear things up, Donald's referring to my talking about the CRF300L as one of the major bikes I considered in my next dual sport purpose. Now we know how that went, as I've got the DRZ400 behind me. The CRF300L I think is still a very worthy contender for consideration. Now when it comes to bike shootouts, I would take their opinions with a massive grain of salt and be very cautious about their opinions. You've got to remember, these major motorcycle media outlets, they have big relationships with the big companies, and if you get flown to a different country, you get put up in a hotel, meals paid for, all that kind of stuff, it very easily gets very difficult to be objective in your opinions. The other thing you got to consider is where these guys are coming from. Often because their career is based on riding motorcycles, they're actually very good at riding motorcycles. So you've got to ask yourself, are their opinions relating to you as a rider? Do you match their skill level? For me, those journo riders are way too good for me. So generally when they're talking about stuff, it doesn't relate to me too much, as I'm a fairly noobish rider when it comes to off-road riding. So I tend to look for people that can speak my language, the more basic, everyday Joe kind of riding style. And that's what I look for. So that's the second thing I would point out. The third thing is, do they understand the nuance of the category they're talking about? Another big problem with these big journal media companies that do a lot of reviews on motorcycles is they're doing super sports, enduros, scramblers, adventure bikes. There's a whole swathe and a whole spectrum of motorcycles that they're riding, so it's very hard for them to understand the nuance of a specific category. I really wouldn't take those shootout videos too seriously. It's a great place to start your research journey, but I wouldn't stop there. So that's what I will say about that, mate. The next question is a really great one from Stefan, and he's saying, your argument for wanting low weight is that you'll have to pick it up often. I want to buy my first bike for a trip around Europe, mostly country roads, dirt roads, and some light off-road riding. In other words, I want to ride in places where I'm unlikely to drop the bike, although I am a newbie, so he's saying there is a possibility for it. If so, how important is low weight when I'll be doing off-road riding? So Stefan, you're pretty correct in your analysis there. Weight means less the easier the riding gets. So I wouldn't focus so heavily on super lightweight when you're looking at just doing easy dirt roads and nothing too much in between. I focus on weight so much because I do find myself drifting towards the enduro style riding that we can do here in Australia quite easily. So I'm usually pushing it way past my skill levels, which really puts a focus on me with weight, because I'm often picking myself and the bike back off the ground. So if you're doing easier riding, you're less prone to falling off, then weight makes far less of a difference. I will still point out that it is reasonably important. It still does affect the handling of the motorcycle. So getting a lighter weight adventure bike is probably still a great idea, as it's easier to maneuver around. And if you do drop it, it is easier to pick it back up. So weight doesn't get completely unimportant when the riding gets easier, it just gets less important. All I can say is get out there in the dirt and have some fun, mate, and thanks for the question. Next question is a really interesting one from Craig, and he's saying, hey Solid, I think that it would be easy to bring the DRZ400 up to spec. I have an LTZ400 quad, this quad that uses a DRZ400E engine has actually had EFI on it since 2009. So it would presumably be quite easy to put EFI on the DRZ if Suzuki wanted it to. Now, I'm sure there would be some routing issues and some different placement problems given that it's in a two-wheel motorcycle instead of a four-wheel motorcycle, but it definitely means the technology is there. So there is quite a bit of hope there, I guess, that they could make it a modern DRZ400, which plenty of you have commented lately is exactly what you want. The other thing he points out is that the quad has a reverse gear, so maybe that does mean that Suzuki could make a 6-gear DRZ400 as well, given that they've been able to fit in that reverse gear into the gearbox on the LTZ400. So very interesting points there, and it's got a lot of us thinking, I'm sure. So great comment there, Craig. Thanks, mate. So the next couple of questions are actually fairly related to each other, so I'll go through each and then I'll wrap them up into one answer as best I can. So the first part of it is, who's that guy? And he's saying, hey Solid, wondering when you plan on getting the DRZ dirty. Hopefully I will be next week. Fingers crossed. So I'm absolutely looking forward to it. I'm sure I'm going to be a complete noob, but it will be very soon, mate. So keep your eyes open for new videos in the coming weeks. He's also saying, very interested on your thoughts comparing the WR. I'm looking to downsize my 1190. Yeah, I can't blame you, mate. They're a great bike, but they're very heavy if you're wanting to do some serious stuff. I've narrowed it down to a 250R, a DRZ, and the CRF300L. Which is cool because I know that's what your final list is. Yep, that's true. That's pretty much what I nailed it down to as well. So I will answer this, but first I'm going to take in this other question to wrap into it. So let's get into that. So the next part of this question is from Tyler, and he says, if I need a bike in the next few months, what would you get? A 250R, a 300L/Rally, or a Kawasaki KLX300? So disappointed Yamaha haven't announced a WR300 or at least a 250R replacement. Yeah, that is disappointing with Yamaha, but I wouldn't expect it anytime soon. Even if they do announce it this year, you've got to think how long it takes for a bike to reach dealership floors. So we're at least a year or two or further away from seeing a WR successor. So I wouldn't pin your hopes on that. So let's bring all that together. So we're comparing the DRZ400 behind me, the WR250R, the CRF300L, and the KLX300. Basically, my answer is this if you want the short answer. Between all of those bikes, they're all fantastic motorcycles. You can't make a wrong decision. If you just wanted my honest opinion, go ride as many of them as you can, and you'll find that you will gravitate to one or the other. It's just the experience of actually riding the bikes. Generally, you can read all the specs and get it in your head what bike you want, but the actual experience, the sounds, the feeling, how it fits you will all change on the day when you get your bum in the saddle. The heart wants what the heart wants when it comes to motorcycles. So get out there and ride it if you can, and don't beat yourself up about picking too much because they're all great bikes. But if you do want to know the nitty-gritty, here's my opinion. If power is important to you and absolutely having a brap, getting the wheel up, and you like the grin factor and being a bit of a hooligan, then the DRZ400E is your bike. It's unmatched in power. It's a pretty fantastic bike. The only complaint I have about it really is the gearbox, and it is old tech, but it has plenty of accessories. So that's the DRZ400E. The 250R, I think, is the best soft enduro bike. It's the lightest of the bunch. It can be made even lighter, has fairly decent suspension out of the box that can be upgraded, and as long as you're happy wringing the neck out of it, it's a great little bike that will surprise you with its performance. So it's the best soft enduro bike, and on top of that, there's so many accessories out there that really, there's nothing this bike can't do. It can do everything from soft enduro to round the world adventures. It really is a capable bike. Now the 300L, I think, is the safest of the bunch and probably the most well-rounded. It's got the mid-sized engine of the bunch, it has switchable ABS, and it's the most modern looking and the most modern functioning in my opinion. So if you want the latest and greatest and you're happy to compromise a little bit on weight and performance for safety, reliability, and bottom end torque, then I think the 300L is making a really good case for being the must-have dual sport dualsport of 2021 and moving forward. Now the KLX300, also a pretty decent bike. I think it's kind of similar to the Honda, and it offers that mid-range kind of power. It's got a bit more torque than the 250 variant and a little bit more horsepower. It's a little bit lighter weight than the Honda, which is also great. It's about the same weight as the 400E behind me. It is very hard to divide up between these four bikes which is best suited for you. Ask things like, which dealership do you have the best relationship with? Is there one that's far closer to you than the others? Which one is the easiest to get parts for? Are having a whole pile of accessories available to you very, very important? What do your friends ride? What do you understand? Are you a carby guy? Are you an EFI guy? Ask yourself all those kinds of questions, because the rest of the spec sheets is splitting hairs really, because any of these four bikes can really be turned into a fantastic dual sport. You're probably looking for a definitive answer, but that's not my style. I really try and educate people to make their own informed decisions. I think that's the better way about going about it. So I hope that helps, guys, and good luck on the journey, and please let me know what you end up getting down in the comment section down below. Cheers. The next question is from JC, and he has got a really interesting question. He's saying, what's your thoughts on the CRF300 Rally versus the DR650? For a 57-year-old novice rider getting back into it after 25 years. Well, welcome back to the sport, mate. It's great to hear you coming back. He's small and skinny with a 32-inch inseam. I'm planning on doing 50% pavement, 40% twin track, and 10% single track. Looks like the DR650 can have a lower seat height and about 1.8 inches with a lowering link, but it's about 30 pounds heavier. Will the extra weight be noticeable, or is it more important to have a lower seat height? I'm also considering the 390 Adventure. I would say straight away, if you are intending any kind of serious off-road and you've pointed out you do want to do a little bit of single track, I would scratch that 390 off the list. It is a bit of a pretender. I know I'm going to ruffle a few feathers here, but it is a soft adventure bike in its current form. You will have to put a fair amount of money into it to get it up to spec to do competently off-road in difficult situations like proper single track. So let's address the weight and the seat height first before I address the two bikes. Both bikes, I think, should be able to be lowered adequately to suit your needs. The DR650, you can drop the suspension as well, so it can get even lower. And I'm sure you could ask the Honda dealership to make it a Malaysian spec CRF300 Rally, which is much lower than the Western market CRF300 Rally. So I would talk to Honda about doing that as well and find out if it can be done upon purchase. So the weight discrepancy is about 10 plus kilos. Now, I think you will notice that a little bit when you're picking it up, and it really depends on what you want to do with the modifications of each bike. The Rally doesn't really need a bigger tank, it's already got it. So it's going to feel top heavy initially when you're picking it up because of that bigger tank and the Rally tower, whereas the DR650 is going to feel a little more centered and like the weight is down lower, so you're going to need less leverage when you're picking it up. So that might offset the heavier weight initially, but like most DR650s, you need to put a bigger tank on it if you're doing longer rides. You're probably going to add some other stuff, so you really are going to add extra weight and make it more top heavy as time goes on. So yes, I think that weight might be a little noticeable, so if you are worried about weight, the Rally definitely has the advantage there in the long run, considering aftermarket modifications on the DR650. Now, what really separates these two? Well, I think if you want the safer bike and the better commuter and more comfortable bike, the Rally wins that contest. It's got ABS, it's got the Rally tower to keep all the wind buffeting off you, so I think it will be much better on the commute for comfort and safety. If that's your focus, and it does sound like you're doing a lot of pavement riding, then I think the Rally is probably the way to go. But if you're not worried about having ABS and you want an engine that has a little more performance, has that brap factor and gets that big grin on your face and you can smash past traffic when you want to, then the DR650 is probably going to have the advantage. Test ride them both, see which one gels with you the most. Is the Suzuki or the Honda dealership more accommodating to your needs and have people you get along with better? and is one or the other closer to you where you're living? So think about that as well, and good luck on the decision, and let me know what happens and what you choose down in the comment section below. Cheers. So the next question is from Riley, and it relates to the previous two questions a little bit. He's asking, what should he do? Should he get a CRF300L, or should he wait for the successor of the WR250R, the fabled WR300/WR350R, which I've heard absolutely nothing about and cannot confirm. So with that statement, go for the CRF300L, mate. It's actually a bike that is available on dealership floors, or will be fairly soon depending on which region you live in. Don't worry about the WR250R successor. Even if they announce it, it's still going to be at least a year away from reaching dealership floors. So get out there, grab the bike that is available now and go out and have fun. Who knows what else will be available then? That's my point. You never know what's going to happen in the future. So act on the present, enjoy the now, get out there and have some fun. Every now and then a cheeky comment pops up and makes me laugh a bit, and the next one's from Brad Lebrowski, and he's saying, anyone else tripped out by this Voldemort looking dude, you're referring to me probably, on here talking about unicorns? Well, thanks to the comparison to a Harry Potter villain, that's a bit of a weird one. So I've got my wand here, mate, and I'm going to show you a magic trick. Watch this. Up your bummakus.